chapter 2, and we're going to get into chapter 3 a bit tonight. Again, if you want to bring up sqlDeveloper and work with it as we go through what's on the screen, that's absolutely fine with me, but we're not going to stop class if you run into a problem with doing your rating. Jennifer, would you mind closing the door, please? Thank you. So, when we left, we were about to get into page 51, and we're going to look at tonight, if I can get the projector working, there we go. We're going to look at tables, and we're going to see more of the information that we can do with tables, and I think you'll find it interesting. And now we're going to start getting into the meat of how we do things with Oracle and how it works. Gail, I'll scan your card after we finish. Okay. So if we start on page 51, there is a list of what we call comparison conditions that we can use with Oracle, and basically they're where clauses. It's used with a where clause, and we'll take a look at those in some detail. And that detail starts with equal to. So our where clause could say equal to a name, or equal to a value like a social security number or a birthday. So that works very well. Now we're going to see examples of all of these as we go through. So this is just to kind of whet your appetite on what we're doing. We can also do with our where clause a set inclusion. That means we're looking for specific values. Think of it as a range of numbers. Maybe we're looking at 1001, 1002, and 1007. And we can set those three numbers into a set inclusion where clause and only report information on those numbers. A range test, I kind of snuck this in a little earlier, but range test we set as an example 5,000 and 6,000, and we want to look at any numbers that are in between there. Well, what kind of numbers would we want to look at? Well, maybe we want to look at account balances. Maybe we want to look at student ID numbers between 5,000 and 6,000. There are a variety of different things that we could look at using a range. Next is pattern matching. And one of the things that we'll talk just a shade about tonight and more in, I think it's chapter 5, is something called pattern matching with wildcards. And in Oracle and SQL, we have two different wildcards. Now, traditionally, a wildcard is the asterisk. And that means you could type in, as an example, TE, and then get the information for Terry, term, Terrence, anything like that. So we're pattern matching, and so that asterisk would give you anything after that. But the other thing, the other wildcard that we have in Python is a question mark, and that stands for one character or one number. So let's say we are looking for, we're not quite sure how to spell a specific word, but we've got our individual's name, and we know everything but two of the letters. So we could substitute those letters with question marks, and Oracle would go through and find us anything that comes up to matching with those two letters being different. And we can talk about it, but it's easier to see as we go through. We can also do a null test. We saw that in some of the samples that we looked at on Monday night. And again, I'm going to say this till you all get sick of me saying it. Null is the total absence of data. There ain't nothing there. All right? It's totally blank. Nothing. And then finally, we can do Boolean connections with a together. We call it an inner join or an outer join. And if I go any further right now, you won't take advanced database. So we're going to stop right there. So let's look at how some of these are done. Here we're using an equal to, so we're looking for a specific pattern. Notice the select clause, and we'll talk through these a little bit to give you some pointers in writing your own select clauses, which by the way you get to do over the weekend and turn in. One of the things that I do, if I've got a large number of attributes, I'll go ahead and type in select, my reserved word, and then I'll come down a line and hit my tab key and type in the first attribute that I want. Now, sqlDeveloper is pretty smart. It sees that I type that tab key in, it'll keep that indent all the way down until I tell it to stop indenting. So that's kind of a nice feature of sqlDeveloper. Notice we've got a comma after each attribute except the last one in the select part of the query, and that's standard formatting for SQL or for Oracle. From L_employees, and then we have our where condition, where manager equals 203. Unlike other softwares that you may have worked with, we don't have to do anything special to indicate that we're looking for a value. And so when we do that, we run the query, and here are the results. And so we can see that our manager is supervising Dan, Fred, and Nancy, and we can see the dates that they have been supervised from, or hire date. Any questions about that query? Yes, I need a minimum, I think, of 8. 10. We just got in. And one of the things, originally when we started, we did not have 10. And I said, we haven't taught this class in 2 years. We have people who needed to graduate. So I think when it came cancel time, they said no, and we only had 7, and we picked up 3 more. So that's good. But if you're inclined to take advanced database, we need to have 8 of you at least sign up. I can look after class, or I can look and let you know next Monday night. Okay, and you can sign up for advanced database until I think it's the week after we come back from spring break. So we've got a large period of time to go. Any other questions on this? All right. Let's change a little bit, and usually I get a question, why is that highlighted in blue? Well, I just came down a couple of lines and typed in my next query, and you have to select it to run it, or it'll run everything. So, same select part, same table or entity, but here I've changed my where to where first name equals Paula. And notice I've used single quote marks to set off Paula, and when I do run this query, we get Paula Jacobs. Now, if somebody's running the query, run it with Paula's name in lowercase letters and tell us what happens. You get no results. So what's that tell us? It's checking for uppercase. So when we do our queries and we're looking for a specific word, name, object, we need to know whether our database is done in all uppercase or what we call camel case, upper and lowercase, or all lowercase. This database is a little unusual in that a true statements we used equal to. Well, we can then use a less than or greater than. Same select, same entity, and now we're going to do credit unit limit less than $17.50. Pretty straightforward. Again, very easy to run. And when we do that, we see the credit limits that are below $15. And just to refresh your memory, these are credit limits in the company cafeteria that they can charge food on. So they either don't trust these two or they don't eat very much. One of the two. All right, so $17.50. Here's another one, and this one is where not manager ID equals 203. Now, for those of you that have had programming, how might you write that differently? And I'll get you to start. Very good. Gold star. I'll bring them in eventually. Usually what I do is stick them on the back of the monitors, and then people come in and say, what are the gold stars? Very good, Rebecca. Less than or equal to, or less than or greater than 203. Yeah. Yep. Give it a try. Who's got a, somebody try the exclamation point. These are all good questions, and if I just said yes or no, it'd go in one ear, gain speed, and out the other. If somebody tries it and they find out, oh, it really works, then you'll remember that longer.
What's the database password again?
Oracle, all lowercase. Ah, guys, you're in the Oracle class, remember? Remember to start the database before we get it together. Good.
Yeah, that's what I was for. Being user.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference as to what it can be as? Or is it
No.
just a personal?
If I ask you to write code in this class, I am interested in how you write your code and if your code gets the desired results. There are 9 of us in the classroom tonight. Okay, there are 9 different potential solutions to each of the problems that we might have. So if it works, then I'm fine with it. Yes, sir.
I know like regular there is a standard form they put your code in. Is there one like that for database?
Let me talk to you about that. I go round and round with some of the other faculty members about we need to teach a format. No, we don't. Because the people that are going to hire you are going to tell you what format they want you to use your code in. I've worked in divisions where they have said your indent will be 8 spaces. Don't use anything more, don't use anything less. Of course, the first thing you do is, well, what happens if I submit something with 9 spaces? Are they going to catch it? They did. So when you go to work for a company in coding, whether it be SQL or Python or C# or C++, they'll tell you how they want things set up. What I'll give you for Oracle is just basically the generic Oracle culture's accepted process. And really, if we want to talk about that, good question. Really, the culture says we capitalize all the reserved words, the select, the from, and the where. Will it work if you don't do that? Yep, absolutely. Most of the Oracle people won't make fun of you, but they won't give you your hood and teach you the Oracle chant. All right.
So
Exactly. Very good, Robert. Um, my most recent experience was out at FAA in 2012 and 2013. We walked in, and the day we walked into a week-long set of meetings where all of the programmers hammered out how they were going to do the code for the project that we were hired for. So you'll find that happening. So again, what I'm going to show you is the basic structure. Uh, this happened to be the structure that we used on the production side over at Tinker, which really kind of amazed me. That at that point in time, back in 2001 to 2006 or so, that's we used the Oracle pretty much accepted standard. So, Rebecca, good for you figuring that out. All right, and this is the result. Obviously predictable. We got everybody that is not manager ID 203. Wait a minute, we got Martha Woods there. Should Martha be there?
She is.
Should Martha be there?
Yes.
Yes, she should. Somebody other than Rebecca. Why should Martha be there? Ah, very good, Liz. Her employee ID, not her manager's ID. And some students will look at that screen and say, "Oh, your where clause didn't work because Martha's there." Yes, it did. It worked exactly the way it's supposed to. All right. Then we talked a little bit about end in prelude to talking about range. And so this is done. Notice the capital for n here, and then our end. Every number that we would put to be included would have a comma between it, and they do not have to be sequential numbers. We could go 202, 203, 317, 201, 419. And if that number showed up in our scan under manager ID, it would report it. So the numbers that are included under your N clause can be in any order, any sequence, pardon me, you want them to be in. And when we run that one, we get this. Only manager IDs 202 and 203. So the code works very well, does exactly what we wanted to do. Let's go a step farther. And this is, I'm throwing you a curve here. When we talked about range, I said numbers, but we can also do a range using dates. And notice how it's done. We're looking at higher date. Between is the reserved word, and this is how we write dates in sqlDeveloper and most SQL programs. 16 AUG 1999. You can tell the textbook company hasn't updated this database in a while. Between and here. Now, there is nothing wrong with putting this complete statement on one line. But sometimes, and this is the way I do it when I write queries like this, I'm going to have between this date and this date, and I may have another and down there. Okay? So if I put them on separate lines, if I have an error or if I need to change one of the dates, it's a lot easier than trying to track it through several different lines. Or one gigantic line. And of course, when we do that, there's the results that we get. So I'll give you a second to catch up on your typing. Give that a spin with our where clause, and And we talked about wildcards. And notice what we're doing here, and I misspoke. The wildcard that Oracle, sorry, I was thinking of Python. Oracle likes a percent sign for wildcards. Where last name is like any name that has an N in it. Alright? So what this is saying is any number of characters before the N and any number of characters after the N, or no characters before or no characters after. Alright? And so this is a way we can go through, and when we look at this last name, here's what it gives us. Owens, Perkins, Kearns, Hoffman, and Brown. All the last names have N's, and the N is located in different positions. We use some other wildcards later for some other things, but as I said, I misspoke. We use percent signs when we're using our where clause. And while you're typing, type in percent sign O W percent sign. Try that as a different option. Now, we've talked about null several times in the last couple of classes. In our where clause, we do it as is null. Okay? Very simple code statement, and there's our results. We have two people, Susan and Carol, that have not been assigned a manager yet. And again, database etiquette, that probably means they are brand new hires. Alright, you don't want to have your database continually store null values. Okay, theory. What would I do in my where clause if I wanted to show everybody that had a manager? You could do that. You could put an exclamation point. What else could you do? Try that, gentlemen. Where not null. Okay. Sometimes you can put in where is not null, but that's kind of repetitive. Okay. So, a couple of different ways to do that. Let's go on and look at some of the things we can do with the select part of our clause and some shortcuts that'll help you. Let's say we're doing a report and we've got last name, but we want to display it as family name. So we know that no spaces are allowed when we create our attributes and when we create our what's family name? Quiz. Alias. 2 points. Very good. I'm out of gold stars. 2 points. So we've got an alias there. Notice also that I'm ordering by last name, but I don't have to type out last name. I can put 1 here. And notice 1 is a green value. It's not black, which means that it's going to go back up and it's going to take our first attribute under the select clause, and that's how it's going to sort that data. how it's going to order the data by. Give you a chance to type this in. And there's our result. Now you get more results than that if you run it, but I started to run out of screen space. So the two big things to take off of this slide to file away in your memory is our alias and our order by. And our results came out sorted by last name. But you're sitting there and you should be saying, but wait, what do you mean I can't use space in an alias? Bless you. Well, you can. Alright? And the way we would do that is select last name as double quote marks, and then I can put anything in there I want to. Double quote marks, family name, double quote marks. I can still do my order by one. And now I get a little nicer result. Here we have printed out family name. And usually the question comes up, well, when do I do this and when do I just leave it as the attribute name? Really, it depends on what your end user wants. If you're writing a query for an end user, you need to find out what they want. How do they want the attribute displayed? Now, a lot of programmers will sit there and say, I don't need to talk to any end user. I know what they want. BS. The end user's paying your salary. Do what they want. Make them feel like they're a part of what's going on. And you're going to keep your contract longer, and you're going to have a happier end user if you do that. If you're the end user, then do whatever you want to do.
I help with it's the same to me if I have the semicolon on the line 9 or line 10.
No, we weren't playing with semicolons. We were playing with quotation marks.
Oh, I see.
Right there. So, double quote, family, space, name, double quote, and that's how it will print out. Right there. So the attribute name at the top of the column, and of course you get more results in that. Yeah, you won't have an underscore. So if you want to use spaces in your select statement, in your aliases, you have to use quote marks. All right. We're going to get into a little more detail with our order by. Now we've got a where not, so we're looking for all employee IDs except 209. And then we want to order by the department code and the last name. So what we're making is a department list alphabetically. Here again, I could have left the last name on the order by line with the comma and put my semicolon there, and it would have run just fine. But I also know that I can drop down to the next line, do a couple of tabs, and look at my code and be able to see a little easier exactly what I'm looking for. And if I have a problem, it'll, with that order by statement, it'll point out specific lines to me. And we can go from there. So again, this is my technique that I'm showing you. You do not have to implement any of that on the code that you turn in. All your code has to do is run. Okay? So, when we run this query, here's what we get. We order by the department code, and then we order by the people in the department. So accounting is only rows, executive is Go ahead.
I heard somewhere
The end of chapter 2. And so, what I would like you to do over the weekend or come early Monday and do it are the following two programs. Whoop, I said by Sunday night at 11:59. So, okay. I'll have a Dropbox for you on D2L, and I want you to do the two following check your understandings. Page 74, the paragraph marker is 217. Sorry, I did not check the electronic indicator if you have an electronic book, but the 217 you should be able to find. And page 76, the marker is 218. Now, let's talk about the assignments a little bit. First off, I don't expect you to get it right the first time. All right? But I want you to try. If you try it and you don't get it right, we'll talk about it, and I'll let you go back and redo it for half of the points that you missed. If you don't try it at all, you'll get a 0 for the assignment, and I will not allow you to redo it. Okay? So try these. And starting off, these are two, they'll challenge you, but they're relatively simple, and I picked them because I'm pretty sure you all can handle them. All right. Another thing that I've noticed that has started, and I'll tell you my response right now. I had a student in the class that I teach after this, Fundamentals of Programming, sent me an email this afternoon at 4 o'clock and said, "What was the homework assignment again that's due tonight at 7:05? And I said, "Go read D2L in the class assignment list." Okay, so all of this is out there right now. You can take a look at it. And I'll probably send you back something that says check D2L going forward, but all this is out there. How do I want you to turn it in? If you want to do a snippet of the screen, which is the easiest way to do it, and does everybody know how to do a snippet on your? Well, you can do that too. I'll show you a snippet at the end of class. Somebody remind me if I forget. You take that, you save the file, you put it in the Dropbox. I'll show you what to save, and it'll make it real easy. It can all be done electronically. It is in the PowerPoint that's out there as a PDF, and this is slide 13. In their class, there is an assignment sheet. In your class, you guys get it in your... Yes, ma'am.
In the PDF, it's 73 and 75.
It is? Let me see.
It's the PDF, not the book.
Oh, the pages are off?
Yeah.
Okay, it could be a different printing of the book. Go by the paragraph markers 217 and 218. Okay. It depends on what edition of the book that you have for the page number. That's why I list the marker. And also if you're doing it electronically. Okay? So you're going to use sqlDeveloper, and you're going to try and solve the problem at 217 and 218. Try and get the code to run. And I'll show you what I want you to turn in at the end of class tonight. All right, let's jump into chapter 3, and this is compound conditions. And now we're starting to get into information that'll help us really produce some, literally, information out of the data that we have. So in chapter 3.1, we're looking at compound conditions and how we can create them and how we can use them. So those compound conditions have 3 separate reserved words that we can use. The first one is and, the second one is or, and the last one, surprisingly, is not. So and, or not are the compound conditions that we can use when we're looking at our queries. These are known as Boolean connectors, and I've heard several different pronunciations, but I went with Boolean. Any way you pronounce it's fine with me. And or combine two conditions. Two things have to be equal for us to have a result. Conversely, not is applied to a single condition and reverses its meaning. And we saw that with the where clauses at the end of chapter 2. And we'll talk more about these as we go through the evening. And chapter 3. We use parentheses liberally when we're working in complex conditions. In fact, and this is Byers' law number 2, if you think they're not needed, put them in anyway. All right? Oracle will not err out on you if you have too many parentheses. It will err out on you if you don't have enough. So hopefully you're thinking, well, how the heck are we going to use parentheses? Well, like this. Standard select statement. Still use an L underbar employees. About chapter 7 we get to use a different table. Where not, manager ID equal to 203. So we want all manager IDs but 203, or the manager ID is null. Alright, so that's our compound condition. Now we had a couple of those at the end of chapter 2, but we really didn't talk about them all that much. So I'll give you a chance to type this out. So the results of our query, where manager ID is not 203, yep, we met that, or the manager ID is null. And so that, my friends, is a compound where condition. So we can take this and we can build on it and go a step further. And look at a query like this. That looks like the same query. Oh no, this is combining both of them. Yeah. Now, wait a minute. Okay. The other one, we had a parenthesis here and none here. Alright. This one, it has to be. And the last one can be either condition. This one, it doesn't. I gotta think of how to explain this. Okay, you can see what happened. We never got to the second condition. Alright. Oracle read where not manager ID equals 203. And it printed that and it never evaluated for the or condition. That's why the statement about parentheses. If we put parentheses here, it'll do this evaluation and then this evaluation. If we have it the way it is here, once it meets one of the criteria in the evaluation, it'll stop evaluating that line. Okay? Use a lot of parentheses. Look, let's go back here one more to go through and we're going to look at the first entity instance, and we're going to say, is the manager ID 203? And if that criteria is not met, then we're going to come down and say, or is the manager ID null? So let's take Jim Kern first. Is the manager ID not 203? Correct, for Jim Kern. All right. Susan Brown, is the manager ID not 203? Well, we don't know. So it would throw that out, or then it would evaluate, or is the manager ID null? And so it picks up the null. When we go to using just one set of parentheses, it's not going to work out.
Yeah, so the not would only apply to the stuff in front of it or
No, it applies to the whole thing.
but it brought up null
No, it didn't.
in your last script, the last one.
The last one did. Yeah, because this is evaluated, and then this is evaluated. We can have either or.
On where not like. Oh, okay, I see.
Yes. Close parentheses here. And this is probably not the best. This is hard to see, but there's no parentheses after the 203, just after the null. So it treats the statement differently. And you can get caught into reporting bad information even though your data is correct. That's why the statement at the beginning in chapter 3 is, if you're not sure about using parentheses, use them. All right? In fact, there'd be nothing wrong in putting a parentheses here and a parentheses here. Okay? Overuse them if you think you need to.
So, in that one, is it meeting 2 criteria, whereas the previous one is only meeting 1 criteria?
Yes, this is one criterion. All right, and this is, here we are back again. We put the parentheses around manager ID. So the way this would really read, the machine would read this is where not equal manager ID 203 evaluated, where manager is null. The or just kind of replaces the where. Okay.
So, you have any that says second parenthesis?
Yeah. This second parentheses for this where clause, conditional clause, is very important. Let's see, I've got something else here. I did a bunch of these, but there they are side by side, and you can see the results side by side if you want to look at that. Trying to figure out how much time. All right, let's go through. Are you comfortable with this? Okay, the best thing I can tell you is use more parentheses than what you think you need, and you'll be in great shape. All right, let's take a look at these 4 things, and then we'll stop for tonight, and I'll show you a snippet. First off, know your database. Right now, you can go through the database L_bar employee is a very small database. You can go through and look at everything that's in that database. All right, so you're gonna kind of get a feel for it, and you should be able then to have an idea what your query results are going to be. Let me give you an example of why this becomes important. A fellow worked for me. In fact, he was my assistant manager when I managed our Robbins Joya branch at Tinker, named Tom Duhan. And Tom actually took this class when I taught it way back when, in 2000, or 2002. And Tom was reconciling financial data for aircraft maintenance. And Tom had studied the database. He had a feel for what the results were going to be. And so when he ran the results of his query, they were off by 8,800 million dollars. And he came to me and he said, "This is not right. Will you check my code?" So I checked the code. We knew what was supposed to happen. And it's telling me my next class is coming up. Knew what was supposed to happen. We ran the code again and it showed us off $8,800 million. And so we started to check the data, and the data was correct, and so we started to dig deeper. And what we found out is that for the KC-135 production line, some charges were automatic. And the assumption was that whoever on the government side closed out the airplane closed it out to include all those automatic charges. That hadn't been done for 10 years, hence $8,800 million. I'll get it right yet. In charges that really didn't exist. And so we were able to go through and close out those aircraft. And then when they ran the report again, it was down to like 7.5 million, which was much more acceptable. But knowing the data and knowing what you think the results are going to be, and then seeing results that may not parallel with what your knowledge of the database is a good indicator, and it's a good way to be a database manager if that's what you want to get into. I would much rather be a database programmer than a database administrator. Administrators, when they get their certificate, get a free lifetime supply of antacid. So, start simple.
What's the difference?
Okay,
if you don't mind, because
No.
it's actually helping me do my work.
sure. A database administrator is a person who works with the background programs that run everything that we're able to do. So they're responsible for setting up permissions. What Oracle tables can you get into? Are you allowed to delete, modify, or sort or number a table? And they determine who's going to do that. They also determine how a database is backed up. If they're using a mirror, they determine the number of errors that are required before the mirror has to be redone, or how much time it's going to take. Yeah, they'll usually set up password requirements. Also at Tinker, and our database administrator was actually a government employee on my contract. DOA would come in if they lost power and the production database went down. Then DOA got called in whenever that happened to be on standby to start the database back up, because it was a manual restart database. You could program them to restart automatically, but for some reason they wanted that manual start. And if you don't have, at Tinker, in the mid 2000s, a lot of our parts had RFI chips in it, radio frequency indicator chips. And so if you scanned the chip as it went by your workstation and the database was down, you lost that data, which meant you lost the location of where that part was. And a part could be a compressor blade, or it could be a whole jet engine, or it could be a landing gear, or a boom, or just about anything. What they send the gas out of. So,
So they stopped using our phones.
no, they use them even more now. Okay. So when you start your query, start simple and then build your query up. Do the select part, do the from part, and run it. Is it selecting what you think it should select? Then add your where clause, add your order by clause, any conditions that you want to do. Think, don't just pound in code. Think about what you want to accomplish. And that will get you a whole lot farther, a whole lot faster. So,